which tells you the weight shift onto one leg or the other. You can look from the side, obviously, you're allowed to. And then you'll see that there's a weight shift relative to the front and the back, and you can start making distinctions about, okay, they might have a standing leg, and just like you explored in the ATM, on their standing leg, they might be more towards the front of their foot and more towards the back of their foot, because they might be somewhere in between. Now, the average is sort of, if you divide the foot into 3, it's at the junction between the front 2/3 and the back 1/3. That's the average of where people's centre of gravity falls on any one foot. But of course, then people will do very tricky things. So they might have their weight on the heel here, but they, on this leg, they've got the weight more on their toes or something like that. So people can be very tricky. They're very 3/4 dimensional. 4th dimension meaning that they bloody change all the time. So is that what you two were doing? Being a bit too fluid. So we won't go into the sort of whether they're forward or back on their foot today. Let's just stay with the standing leg and then the non-standing leg. So who of you got a bit frustrated with just looking and started wanting to touch?
Oh, me. Yeah.
Okay. So let's now do some little kind of test moves, if you like. So you've got your hypothesis. So you've got some ideas about which may or may not be the standing leg. Now, with a client, you probably wouldn't ask them, because ask them what their standing leg is. Well, especially if it's the first date, you don't ask on the first date. So can I borrow you? Is that all right? You look nervous. Yeah. Okay. So here's the next thing to do. So face this way. Are you on camera? Yep. So let's say I've got my hypothesis about, oh, look, I think she's got more weight on one leg than the other. So can I do some little test moves? So as Narayan pointed out, ideally, this is about the pelvis. Everything's about the pelvis. Everything. I'm sorry to be quoting Larry again, but what doesn't matter what the question is, the answer is always the pelvis. That tells you probably where his mind is, but no, that's not. Don't record that. So let's start from here and just lightly. So you're on the top of the pelvis. Shift somebody's weight a little bit. So I'm doing this, and obviously they're going to help me because they're in standing and they can't help themselves. And it's just a very gentle, but where she wants to go. So I'm kind of initiating the weight shift, and she's got a very particular pattern of how she weight shifts that way, which is quite different to how she weight shifts that way. Now, my hands are already being mean and actually exaggerating it. So I've got to be clean about this, right? And not influence. No influence. Because I just automatically went into what's my hands doing if I'm starting to influence and making directions, suggestions. No suggestions, just witnessing. Well, the suggestion is to move your weight. How they then do that is kind of up to them. Okay, so and what I'm feeling is what I'm feeling. I can't feel what she's doing. I can only feel what I'm doing. So that's why you have to be really clear about it, okay? You can't get into her nervous system and feel what she's feeling. You can't. You can only ever infer it from the effort that you feel in yourself. So when I say it's easier to shift her weight, actually it's easier to shift her weight to the left, all I can say is it feels easier for me. Right? Is that it's really clear that this is only your perspective, and you're inferring that. And this is where we get into this conversation. Was that me? Is it easier for her? Am I feeling it easier shifting her weight to the left than right because I find it easier to shift my weight to the left and the right? So you have to know what's you and what's her. And you can only guess what's her, right? Because you actually can't get into her skin, into her nervous system. You can only resonate with it in a way. Is that clear? I'm going to say it a million times. You have to understand this to be clean about it. Otherwise, you're just projecting. So that's why you're going to do a lot of practice in here, doing all these ATMs so that you know what you are. And then if it's even more than you, moving, you know that it's slightly harder for you to shift your weight to the right. So for her, if it's even more than that, you know that you can kind of extrapolate that it's her. It's very hard to say. It's much easier to feel. Okay, so I just do that a few times. See, and necessarily which way is easier for her to shift her weight is not necessarily the standing leg. You start to get a sense of where does she feel more confident? Where does she? I'm inferring all this from the effort that it takes me to shift her weight. Yep. Okay, so I can do it from here because that's the easiest place to shift because it's where the centre of mass is. I could come up here and very gently put my hands, and I'm kind of, can you see where I am? I'm sort of on the top of, I'm as close into her spine as I can get. I'm not going to get right in and get on top of the lateral processes of the vertebral column, but I'm close to there, somewhere where it's kind of comfortable, and I'm pushing down on the top of that coat hanger, and I need to get in close so that I'm not going to pull it, and I'm thinking about pushing down into her feet. Now she's doing a sort of a response to that. So you need to just sort of sneak up on her. And this is where we don't talk when we're doing this because she's listening to me and doing all sorts of responses to my voice as opposed to my hands. Now, for someone who's little, and I'm taller than her, so I can do this. If you are shorter than that person. Now, so what I want to do then is I've done a few pushes straight down as she is, and I'm getting a sense, again, a projection of, is that where I'm pushing? Is it kind of landing more towards one foot than the other as she is? And that would tell me her shoulders are a little bit here and all the rest of it. I mean, she's doing something complicated where she's sort of got a bit of a turn. Well, that's what she thinks she's doing. No, just joking. This hip's back a little bit. So there's a few things happening. And then what I can do is take her weight from here over to her right leg and push down and sense what feels kind of easier for me and therefore her. And then I'm going to take her over here. Now she actually doesn't want to go over here and push down. But my connection to the floor is easier there, but she just doesn't want to go there maybe as much. And then I can come back to where her middle is, where she thinks her middle is, and push again. So I think her right leg is taking more weight still after that. But that's, I don't know, what did you think you were doing before? Yeah. Where's Kevin? What did you think was her standing leg? So it is complicated because, I'm trying to keep it in one plane, but she's rotating. So you can even see that foot is slightly further forward and this one is back, and she's doing that. So it's kind of complicated. So is she doing that and coming over to here, or is she doing that and coming over to here? I don't know. And she doesn't know now either. So it's fluid, right? Yeah, that's very unfamiliar to her, but what she just did was more that. But that's then the beginning of a movement. And it's complicated because her pelvis is more that way, but her shoulders are very much that way. So it's complicated. So again, am I right? Is she right? I don't know. It's information. Yep. Okay. So go ahead and try. So the two things you're going to try, tries not the right word, is this nice sliding of the pelvis over that foot, and you're initiating the movement and then seeing where she goes. And then, when she can come back, yep. No, I'm bringing her back up to a point, really. It's hopefully fairly light. Pushing to, I'm sliding her weight to the right. I'm exaggerating and sliding her weight to the left. No, I'm moving my weight a little bit as well. Yeah, she's experimenting, so I'm going to stop. And then I'm coming up here. Now this is, you can call Jenny and I over about this. It's like, again, because I've got Larry's notes about this, it's like I'm fishing for the foot. So if I just gently increase the weight there, see, she goes onto her right foot when I'm pushing. So maybe. I don't usually though. But that's the right question to ask. Yeah. I'm pushing, so because I'm pushing more with this part of me, and I'm leaning a little bit down onto her. Now it's important to play around with this, and it's quite a light lean, because if I leaned on her like that, as in leaned forward, that's no good. If I lean back, that's no good. So I am trying, it's not the right word, but I can't think of anything else, because it's
the intention.
My intention, thank you, is to kind of sink down through her skeleton and see now I feel her left foot better. So whereas before when I pushed, if I exaggerated it, I felt like I could feel her right foot better. Now this is a conceit. This is something I'm constructing in my brain. It's not reality. That's what I'm sensing in myself. Yeah, if they really don't want to go there, you don't go there. Yeah. So yes, this is something to try. So with someone as tall as Kevin, you can you have to be really clear about. So I wouldn't stand on a stool because you lean on too much. But I have to work a little bit harder in my arms because I can't use my body weight here. So how do I make sure that the pressure is straight down towards his feet and me not pulling him back or pushing forward? So this is why you do so many ATMs, so that you start to know yourself. Now, if you wanted to stand on a thing, but just notice because you'll be unstable and you'll be so much taller than him that you'll be, so how can I get a sense of that? I can still, kind of go for his feet. And actually what you're after is, do they know where their feet are? So I can feel his heels and a sort of a tendency to turn, but make sure you then let the pressure off. But it's possible to do it up. All right, but his feet. I'm feeling for his feet. Yeah. So I'm going down straight the way he wants, and which foot kind of comes to mind more. So I'm feeling down through his skeleton. This is hard. Yeah. And so actually yeah.
So it seems like you're suggesting go in this direction and then listening to see what happens.
Yep. So and the question is going in the direction of down. So what I'm doing is exaggerating gravity. I'm gravity, because I am the god of gravity, and I'm exaggerating it and seeing where that feels. So it's very hard to say in words. It's very hard to say in words. So it's really helpful to have that. It's a suggestion. And that you're waiting for the response that and you are kind of making it up, to be honest. It is a construct that you're creating.
So whenever I start to walk, I always wait there on my left or I kick with my right foot. If I just stand around, I do that.
Yeah, you do. So it's complicated. That's right. And that's what I keep saying is I've got colleagues who say, well, it's pretty much if that's what you do, then that's what you do. And this is why standing leg. I don't find that with real people because you're complicated and you do unusual things. Yeah. You do unusual things. Oh, geez. Who would possibly suggest to you that it's quite congruent what you see, that people that the leg that they collapse onto in standing is the standing leg and this and that and the other. I don't find that it's that congruent because we are complicated.
Right.
I mean generally, not people trying to please me, because I'm talking about clients, I'm talking about people that I watch in the street. We are more complicated than I guess what I'm saying to you is feel free that this is going to be an emergent thing and that you'll get a lot of data that won't necessarily fall into a nice, neat, predictable pattern. Yeah, so why? You can give me some answers. Why might it be interesting? Why might we? Yeah. Yep. So it's part of working out what someone's habit might be. And a standing leg is a fairly strong habit that might be serving them really well and we'll leave it alone, or it might be something that needs to be bubbled up to their conscious in a way that they can address and make some different choices. Yeah. That's one answer. So we've got a whole week, huh? Bit of a spotlight thing. Yeah. So see how many more answers to that question can emerge. That's right. If you can't change the weight on your feet, you can't walk, you can't do anything because you're stuck. So it's another possible habit that we could use to start an overall drink. But it's keep finding another answer to that question, because that's sort of a bit of a theme is so what. You could say that the so what question is going to be, I'd like to always be bubbling on your lips. So what? I saw a hat with it on the brim. So what? I was going to buy it, but hats. Maybe just a t-shirt. So yes, I would. Did you know I'm a shoe girl? How did you know that? Oh, right. Okay. Right. I've just shared that as well, did I? Oh, is there anything I haven't shared? Is there anything I haven't shared? You don't know what you don't know. I'm going to become that. That's not, yeah, that's right. That's okay. That's right. Yeah, multiple choice is the answer. A, pelvis. B, pelvis. C, pelvis. D, yeah, that's right. Okay, so are you happy with that? So you're going to see, you're going to feel by moving the pelvis left and right, which you sense is easier versus harder, knowing that that what you're sensing is actually yourself. And then you're going to put your hands on that sort of that point around just to the either side of the spine, the neck, and it's the laying on of hands, and gently let your hands sink down like that, with this idea that you are accentuating gravity on through the whole skeleton, all the way down to your feet, and that you are sensing through the person to the ground, that the person is the conduit to the ground. And what flashes in your mind, as it were, is that the right leg clearer or the left leg clearer, again to you. And then you can actually shift their weight clearly onto their right leg and do the same sinking thing. Come back, shift their weight onto their left leg, sink down. So that then you've got the two contrasts as well. So what is clearly more over their left leg, and do they, yeah, 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 and come back to the middle, their middle. Yes, it is. The fingers, you shouldn't be pushing with the fingers, you're pushing here. Yeah. We very rarely use the fingers. Tips of fingers are for feeling, but not moving. Because if I move you with my fingertips, you'll feel.
Yes, it's
But if I move you here, yeah, yeah, yep. But my fingers weren't doing anything. They're just.
in a similar way when you're moving the side.
Yeah. Try and reduce your degrees of freedom by reducing the amount of joints that you're pushing through.